take video. There you go. Stop taking video.
You want me to record?
Okay, let's record.
Let's record,
All right.
Mama.
All right, good evening, everybody. I am Eldridge, and I am your host of Voices. And tonight's episode of Random-ish, I got three of my guest ladies here. I've got Bes right here next to me, Dartania in the middle, and Ashland on the end. Say hey, ladies. Say hello to everybody.
Hey.
Tonight on Random-ish, we really wanted to talk about something that's really endearing to us, and that's one word. It's home. So we need to ask you, when you think about home and you know what it means to you, where is home for you and how do you define it? Ladies, let's talk about this. What's home to you? Allie?
Home to me is, for the most part, for the city, it's Appleton. I've spent most of my life here. I was born in Chicago. I've lived several different places, but I have to say, for a city, this would be home. It's where I'm most comfortable. It's where I know most everything. So yeah, I would definitely have to say Appleton as far as a location is home.
How about you, Dartania?
Well, I have a lot of homes, so I'm a little bit all over the place. I was born and raised in Chicago, South Side, for the first 16, 17 years of my life. That's where I was. That's where I grew up. That's where my roots are. So Chicago is always going to be home for me. And then I moved from Chicago and I moved to Wisconsin, and I've been in Wisconsin for 20 plus years. I ain't going to tell you how old I am, but I've been in Wisconsin for quite a while. I've been up here in Appleton, Wisconsin for at least 20 years. My daughter's 20, so I've been here 20 years. And this is home to me now. Mm-hmm. You know, Chicago was home to me then, and Appleton is home to me now, and I love it here. So the environment is different. The culture is different. Everything is completely different here than it was growing up in Chicago. So,
For you, Bes, I believe you're also a Chicago native as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about you.
My situation is a little different because growing up, we kind of, I think from the age of like 11, we kind of moved all over the place, but we always came back to my station, which was, I feel like, Chicago. That was where we always came back to. Mm-hmm. So always moving around from state to state. I've lived in Kentucky, Michigan, Indiana. I've learned to make home wherever it is that I feel comfortable. So right now my home is Appleton, but I'm from Chicago, and I take that with me wherever I go. So I'm from Chicago, but I live in Appleton.
Sweet home Chicago, right, y'all? I'm a Chicago native too, and the thing about Chicago is it has some different distinct cultural nuances that I'm sure that we all can reminisce about. So when you think about home and we talk about Chicago, what is it about Chicago that still resonates with you? What still feels good about it that you go back often?
I feel like it's the culture. You know, you don't get that from everywhere. I feel like Chicago people have a sense of different kind of communication. You know, when you know that's where you're from, you know everything about it. Like, that's why I go back. For the food, especially the food.
The food? Yeah, because you can get some sort of food there. You crazy. She said the word. Okay.
She said the word. The food. The entertainment. The things to do. Like, being in Appleton is great when you want a relaxed atmosphere. You want to work. You go home, you work, you come home, you take care of your kids. That's what Appleton is. It's more of a relaxed and laid back place. Anything other than the bar, that's what you do for fun. You go to the bar. Like, there ain't a whole lot of options for us in Appleton to do.
But to me, some of that's the beauty of it, though, isn't it?
It is a beauty. It's a beauty and a curse. I need some stuff to do every now and then.
I love that it's smaller because I'll tell anybody, like, I love raising my kids here.
Yes.
But as far as having something to do, like, it is really, really lacking. For me, I was also born in Chicago, but I didn't live there long enough to really, like, have that embedded in my soul. So for me, like, when I do go back to Chicago, I mean, when I see the skyline, there's something in me that I, like, kind of feel like home about. Mm-hmm. But I also enjoy that. I enjoy the culture of it, that there are so many things to do. The food, of course, the food.
Right.
And, like, the family that I do have left still is in Chicago to this day. So I guess I resonate just a little part. I don't know if like being from Chicago is just like a little part of your soul that you feel.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't get the culture, every time I go there and I see the skyline driving to the city or from it, I just get this like little happy feeling, even if it's for a second of seeing it and just knowing that that's
And
the.
that traffic, you need that car because that traffic
Ain't no joke, is it?
You be like, I want to get up out of here.
If anything's in me from Chicago, it's driving. I drive everywhere. Like I'm in Chicago downtown
So you
traffic
want
all the
crazy
time.
drivers.
I drive aggressively, but I don't drive stupid.
I drive stupid. I'm all in the emergency lane.
So you left Chicago, but she ain't left Chicago.
Right.
Right.
Right. Because I'm the one that's like, oh, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. I'm going the speed limit, maybe 5 over the speed limit.
No.
Like, people, please don't.
Every time
kill
I get in the
me.
car, I think I'm in
Right.
Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So I heard all three of y'all say something that was really interesting to me, and it's the word culture. Now, culture is everywhere. But what's different about this culture? I'll just say for me being a Chicago native, like usually what happens is that you're right, something happens as soon as you see the skyline, it's like a certain kind of swag or a certain type of way of being comes back. I know I turn it on. So like when you leave Appleton and you go over to Chicago, what's different about you? Because it's a cultural shift in you. What's different? What do you do differently?
Everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Whole attitude is you have to go into Chicago with a different attitude. Though.
Yes.
You can't go into Chicago with the same attitude that you have in Appleton. Because like in Appleton, I'm relaxed, I'm laid back, you know, and I'm not as observant as I should be. You know, I'm not worried about. But you go back to Chicago, it's like, oh well, shit, I better pay attention.
Right.
You gotta be alert.
I need to be alert, but also when you speak to people, they speak back.
Okay.
It's the same as here, but the whole just being around the people in Chicago, the way they move dictates the way that you move. So depending on the people that you're around, like when I go downtown, it's different than when I go to the south side.
Right.
It's different than when I go to the west side. So depending on what part of town I'm in,
Definitely.
it will tell you what my actions are going to be and how I'm going to move. I'm going to move one way or the other depending on what side of town I'm on. And I'm all over Chicago when I go to Chicago. So
You have to adapt to your environment.
And it's, the cool thing about Chicago is too is when you talk about culture and moving from one side of town to the other, what I notice is there's a real big distinction in the food. Now here in Appleton, the one downside is that we pretty much have one of everything, and it's within 5 minutes,
everything.
right? 5 minutes of stuff. But the nice thing about Chicago is the food variety. So when you go downtown and get food, and you go to the north side and the south side, what's the difference in the type of food, or what can you pick out one thing from your home that you remember that was really good food? And what side of town was it on?
Hell chicken. He said not chicken. Hell chicken. He said hell. I'm not bothering just thinking about it. Harold.
Yes.
Harold's.
Yes.
Named after Harold Washington, right?
Yes.
Well, it was the same name as Harold
Harold
Washington.
the same name, but
Y'all get it Harold.
Harold's chicken.
Harold's chicken. Because a lot of people like, you know, all the rage about Popeyes, and then Brown's chicken is
Popeyes
and churches.
nothing.
Churches.
Well, Popeyes is only big around here because up until this point, people have had
KFC.
Right.
So unless they travel down to Milwaukee or wherever to go get it, it's brand new to them. And
Right,
as soon as
right.
they taste it, they're like, flavor! Oh my god, we didn't know that the chicken had flavor. So to them, that's why it's
Right.
The
the biggest
nasty
thing.
gas station chicken.
Yeah.
Okay, but see, we had real tips
We gotta
over there.
eat what we can eat. I mean, we
Well,
don't
yeah.
have those options. So when you don't have those options, you get accustomed to what
Right,
it
well,
is that you
not
have.
only are there not the
I go in
options, but the
grocery store
time
and grab
frame is so
8 pieces in a
limited.
minute, 'cause
Yeah.
I
In
don't
Chicago, you can go in at 3 in the morning, you can get pretty much whatever you want. Here, after 9 o'clock at night, like,
get nothing.
No.
The sidewalk rolls up, literally.
right.
And don't get us wrong, we're not complaining. What we're doing is we're telling you the unique differences. I think for me, with Appleton, what I really like it is about all the things that we just alluded to. It's safe. I don't have to be on point. There's been times when I've gone to sleep and left my garage door open, and the police department has put a thing on there and said, hey, remember to close your garage door. You don't get that in a big city. When I'm walking around in Chicago, yeah, I got my purse across me. I'm making sure that I got my arm over because ain't nobody about to cut it off with a razor blade. For you guys that don't know that out there, That's a big thing when you're in big cities. If you don't have your purse strapped to you and taped to you literally, you going home with it strapped. So remember to wrap it around you and keep your arm on it. That's neither here or there. But the other thing about Chicago is that Italian ice. Remember that Italian lemonade?
Ooh,
okay, the Tasty Freeze man. And the Tasty Freeze man.
The corn man.
The corn man.
The corn
And see, that's the thing about when you talk about
Italian
the culture.
beef.
Italian beef. Yes.
Oh God.
Y'all about to send me into a food corner. I ain't got food in front of me.
I can taste the Italian beef in my mouth right now, dipped in there, juicy.
Portillo.
Yes.
Oh God, yes.
From Portillo.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. So like when you said like, okay, what's the difference between when you downtown or when you on the south side getting food? When you downtown, you probably gonna eat some bougie. Right?
Yeah.
You gonna eat some flat tops, Giordano's or something like that. When you on the south side, you gonna eat some Harold's, some Baba's, some Sharks, some Captain Hooks.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
it's different.
And the
But-
soul food restaurants that they have, they're more in the city versus they are downtown. So you'll get more of the ethnic foods.
You still got that red and white checker tablecloth though. You know that one with the door flap and the screen be coming up. You guys ever seen that? And all of the soul food restaurants, what's really crazy is usually there's a red and white checker tablecloth. It really is the old plastic ones. But you're right. Go ahead, Dartania. You were saying that you get certain types of soul food. Whereas here we have a whole food restaurant, a very good soul food restaurant, but we're limited in as to what we can get. Shout out to Tasha Banks at the Cozy Corner, y'all. Tasha, thank you for all of that you do for us here in Appleton to give us a little bit of taste of home. So what else is it about your home that really resonates with you and makes you feel like you at home when you go there? And how are you moving some of those things here to Wisconsin to make you feel more comfortable? I know for me, sometimes it's pictures of family, or it might be playing y'all V.O.I.C.E.S. And I know spades.
Spades.
But V.O.I.C.E.S, okay?
Spades,
I'm straight up
baby.
Chicago native. It's
Cutthroat.
all about V.O.I.C.E.S, and we will cut you too, okay? Don't even play. Bus! Okay.
We need a spades game. We need a spades game going on. But what I bring from there to here, what I do when I go there. Where?
Yeah, what do you
Spades and skating.
Yeah, they had a spades and skating event on
Sick
Sunday.
with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see. I need missing all of that. I need to get on their page.
Okay, so we have to get sick with it one time. But again, the question is what do you, the three of this is for all three of you, the thing that you had there in Chicago that made you feel like home, what is it that you've brought to Appleton to make it feel more like home for you?
I personally would say the open mind that people have in Chicago. People are open to meeting new people, having conversations with people. I feel like here people are a little closed-minded, so I think when I come here, I still strive to strike up conversation with people and talk to people. No matter if they don't want to talk to me or not, I still be talking.
Okay.
Well, for me, that's something new because I was never one that wanted to talk to people all the time. I was just one of them, get away from me. I really don't feel like being bothered with you. And I wore it on my face. Like, people told me I was so unapproachable. Like, you were so unapproachable. You just look like you in a bad mood all the time.
I
Like,
get that too.
Don't nobody want to even say hi to you. I said, well, why are you stopping to talk to me?
Okay, so unapproachable. Yet you're
Why are you approaching me?
Yet here you are.
Yeah.
So it's something that I had to work on, and it took me years to work on the fact that I go out by myself, and I go out and have dinner, and I have a whole conversation with a perfect stranger.
Okay.
Like, I never did that before. That is not something that I was comfortable doing. It's not something that I was brought up to do. You don't go out by yourself as a woman. You better take somebody with you. You don't you know. But now it's like I move around solo all the time. I take flights by myself. I take vacations by myself. So I don't wait for anybody anymore. And my mindset is to that point now. But it's because I've come through so much being an early parent and all the things that came along with that. But you just have to bring it with you and be accustomed to it.
What do you bring? What did you bring from home?
Honestly, from me, like, I guess Chicago, I was born there, and I feel home when I see it, but more so than Chicago, I guess, places that I remember living and moving, like, I lived in South Haven, Mississippi, which is a suburb of Memphis.
Okay.
I also lived in southern Missouri. I lived in a little tiny city called Jackson.
Okay.
And Cape Girardeau, and I think more so than Chicago, I think just the things that I've seen, especially in Memphis, of the complete differences of size of town, how people are treated. And when I lived in South Haven, Mississippi, with biracial children, there, if you're white, you're fine. If you're black, you're fine. But biracial and being together, they still look at you crazy. So I think
y'all take it from the white girl. She have her issues too, okay? Just remember, we all got our crosses to bear.
Right, and I mean, even more so than me, it was my children. And I'm a fierce mama bear when it comes to my children. So I think it was just experiencing different things that, I mean, as a white woman, I'll never understand.
Oh, you white? Okay.
Sometimes I am.
Okay.
Sometimes.
We got lost.
I just am real pale. But I can never begin to understand, as women of color, how you've had to deal with the blatant racism that always has been and is continuing, whether people deny it or not. I can empathize, I can sympathize, but I can never understand. But I've watched my children be judged that way. So for me,
so I understand exactly what you're going. I understand exactly.
So as you come from your other homes that you saw the differences in the way you had to adapt, if you will, did you ever experience any of that, having to be more agile or more adaptable because of any being your gender, your age, anything like that?
I didn't experience racism until I came up here. Now, in Chicago, there was colorism. They favored, a light skin or whatever over a dark skin. But when I came here, there was racism. People didn't like black. It didn't matter if you was light skinned or they didn't like you. And I never understood that. And you would see, I would get stares like when we went out for my birthday. I'm like, why are you staring at me? And I've never experienced it until I moved to Wisconsin.
So do you think that living in Chicago maybe equipped you, all three of us, because that's four of us, with the fortitude that we have? Because I believe that in order to venture out and be what I would say we are as pioneers, ladies. We are pioneers, and here's the real deal. You came here 20 years ago. I've been here 12 years. How long have you been here, Allison?
91. So
okay, so 91, and you've been here
8 months.
8 months. So you have different variations, but the common thing about it is that we're all native Chicago people, believe it or not. There's something about us that allows us to be able to call this home, even though, and make memories here, because that's what I heard you say is there's other places that I lived before. I bring things from those other places to make it feel home. I may not have experienced what I experienced, but what I've been given. Apparently, Chicago itself, as our stomping ground, has provided us with some form of resiliency that allows us to be able to survive no matter where we go. You guys want to try to tap into what you think that is?
Chicago for me set the foundation because I grew up in the projects in Chicago.
Okay,
So
which
I
one?
grew up Robert Taylor.
Oh, girl, please. No, sorry, I'm telling y'all, don't even play.
So I grew up on 39th, right behind the V.O.I.C.E.S Stadium, right where Wentworth was. You crossed the bridge, and we were in the building that stood alone. So one side of us, you had one gang. On the other side of the street, you had another gang, and then you had our building that stood alone. And then you cross the bridge, there's a whole different crew of people, a whole different gang of people. So if you're coming across the bridge, you got to watch them at the bridge trying to shoot you. You're coming from this way, you got to watch them over here. You can't go across the street this way. So with our building standing alone, it taught us completely different stuff. Like we'd be down at the playground and you'd see the cars coming and you'd be scared to be in the playground. Like you don't know when you got to hit the floor. Like you don't know when you got to get upstairs. You don't know. But they still, our parents still allowed us to go outside. They didn't put us in a box and shelter us and tell us you can't go outside, you can't do nothing. They told us to watch yourself, you be aware of your surroundings.
Yes.
If you see something that ain't right, you get your ass out of there. That's the way I was raised. And now, kids don't get that. They're so sheltered. They're so coddled. They don't know how to take up for themselves. They don't know how to watch out for themselves. And the minute that somebody says anything to them, they're crying in their feelings. We didn't get that option.
You right.
Growing up, like we were, what you running in here crying? But you don't get up out of here.
Don't be running in my house with it. I'm trying to watch my story.
You come in here with that mess. You better not run in here crying either. You better head fall back and
Right.
better not.
I'm gonna fight you.
Right.
Yep.
Right. It wasn't none of this. That the way we raise our children now is us as parents, because we're the ones that's raising this generation that we have right now. We're raising our children like, I don't want to bring my child up like that because my mother brought me up like that. But guess how strong you are? Because your mother brought you up like that, or your father brought you up like that. You were brought up to be a strong individual. You were brought up to be able to deal with different circumstances and not fold. We don't bring our children up not to fold now. We bring them up to be in their feelings about everything.
See, for me, like, I didn't experience the childhood. I never had to, when I was small, I never had to feel guarded or anything like that. But I agree that experiencing that, I experienced that once I was a little bit older, that I needed to always be on guard. But having that experience does make you strong. And for our kids today, I don't think I want them to have to go through the experience of always having, but to have the knowledge to be able to be aware, even though, you know, they're not in constant danger. They should be aware, have an understanding, instead of just, you know, melting and crying every time I don't get my way. You know, that they should have some strength in them, whether or not that's what they're experiencing.
Right. And that's so different, because I grew up in a different dynamic. Like, I grew up, like when you mentioned gangs were so different back then. I feel like gangs were more respected and had more of a purpose. Now it's just like, oh, this is my street. You can't be on this, whatever. But when I grew up, it's like the gangs used to protect us.
You talk about Blackstone Rangers who was a business. They had their own stores.
Yes.
They actually were entertainers, but they were capitalists like anyone else.
Everything.
They
were like that until
had to
they
make
took all the
money.
heads. They thought by taking all of the heads of the gangs away and putting them up that you would be able to take the gangs away, and that didn't. You severed the
Well,
head.
now it's just all these kids out there.
You have all of these kids with no direction. When you had
Well, the
somebody
kids now, like back in the day, you know, two men got into a fight, they'd knuckle up and go out in the street and fight.
Now they shoot.
Now, you know, you scuff my
ain't
nuts
get
and
out.
I'm gonna kill you over it. They shoot. They don't.
So are you saying that what home looked like then looks different now? I mean,
Absolutely.
the infrastructure is somewhat same, but there's been like this drastic shift
It is.
in the way that we perceive how we can move around in our homes. If you think about it, if you just said some things that really resonated with me, it's like, yeah, I went through the same thing. You could go outside, you come in when the street lights was out, you went across the street and you played stickball.
Right.
You better not come in here crying because somebody hit you. If you didn't fight back, you better, because you're going to have to fight me. All those types of things. So I guess that what I think about when I think about home is I think about it's the place that gave me, if you will, my sea legs, that gave me my backbone, my strong upper lip, and showed me how to be no matter where I'm moving through the world. And just like all of you ladies, what it has done is it has taken away some of the fear that we experience as young women, because you'll go somewhere by yourself and eat dinner and not worry about what people think. I go somewhere by myself and eat dinner. I don't care what you think. If I'm starving, I'm eating a day. I don't eat a lot, but I need to eat when I need to eat. And so that's the thing about it. But also I think that we gain something. We gain something that we may not even think that we have. And that's all of us coming together at this interesting time. The fact that the universe is like round and it's so much space between us, but look at how we all found our way back from home to another home, and we all connected in one sort of way. If you had one thing that you really wanted to leave with people about, what is your favorite memory about being at home, wherever home is? Because like, again, like you said, home could be the place where you grew up. That's what we understood, where you were born. Maybe it's the place where you had your fondest memories. Maybe it's the place where you fell in love. Maybe it's where you had your first job, bought a car, whatever. But for each one of you, if you had to take one really, really good memory and say that this is the thing that I'm holding on to now from my past, what would it be? Allison, I'm gonna start with you.
I think out of every place that I've lived, and things that I've seen, the one thing that I've pulled from it and really shapes who I am today is just seeing the injustice that other people are done and the way other people are treated, different cultures. And for me, no matter where I've lived, I've taken that in me. And that's one thing that forms everything about who I am, is that injustice, people being treated poorly, and just the way human beings treat each other. That's what I've pulled from my experiences, no matter where home is.
Yeah.
Is that humans are humans, and I do everything in my power to treat everyone exactly like a human being. If I don't like you, it's based on the content of your personality. And the one thing I teach my kids, and I've told them that is the most important thing for me as a mother, is for them to be good human beings, because I've seen so much ugly that I guess that's what I've pulled is I don't want to be an ugly person. I don't want my kids to be ugly people, that there's already enough that I want my kids to be beautiful souls, and there's no reason to treat people poorly no matter where you go, no matter what you do. And with you experiencing racism for the first time in Appleton, I understand that. Like 15 years ago, I had a really good friend who was one of a few black women up here, and I watched it happen to her. We'd go to a grocery store, she was just leaning into a shelf to grab something. The woman was standing there and quickly clutched her purse and moved away. Now, this was the most innocent looking woman, had her little son in her hands, and because her skin was dark, this woman instantly clutched her purse. And for me to see things like that and know that it was solely based on her skin color, like, to me, that's sickening. And I don't ever believe anybody should be treated that way or judged for any of it. And that's who I am today. I'll always stand up in the face of injustice.
Thank you, Allison. We really appreciate that. I think standing in the face of injustice is a strong skill to have. And thank you.
You're welcome. I feel like that's my job.
The one thing that I take with me is the kitchen conversations.
Oh, girl.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.
The kitchen conversations have gone away, and I learned so much being in the kitchen with my grandmother. Like, my grandmother made sure I knew how to cook. She kept me in the kitchen. My grandfather's wife, she kept me in the kitchen. I was always around the older people. I didn't hang out around the kids my age, not a whole bunch. I was always around the older ladies, and they were always teaching me and always showing me, which is why I am the way I am right now. Like, I try to get the Sunday dinners and things back going, and like, the family now is not like the family back then. There ain't no big mamas. Where the big mamas at? We need to become big mamas again and get the families back together so that we can have that connection again, because we don't have the connection that we once had. You know how it is as black women. You get in the kitchen and you gonna peel the potatoes and you gonna do the string beans and you gonna do this, and they talk. And to hear the conversation that goes on in the kitchen was absolutely amazing. And I miss that.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I miss that.
Bes?
I think one thing that I have taken with me is the community. And it's, when I grew up, you didn't just have your mama who you would get in trouble by. You got the next door neighbor, the neighbor down the street, and if that neighbor seen you doing something, you still gonna get in trouble. Exactly. You still gonna get snatched up. The block parties, the Bud Billiken parades.
Oh, Bud Billiken! Oh my God! Yes! Yes! I had cousins that were majorettes in the Bud Billiken
Parades when they weren't doing nothing.
Right. Go ahead.
Yes, the Taste of Chicago.
Oh, the taste, girl, yes.
I miss kids being kids.
Yes.
I miss adults teaching their kids. And I just miss the community, and that's something that I always say for me, because now I feel like people have the mentality of, well, if it don't bother me, if it ain't my family, I really don't care.
But you have to think about that the women nowadays will come tell you, don't touch my child. Don't talk to my child. Don't do this or that with my child. If they don't want the community, they don't want your help in raising their child. They think you're trying to overcome how it is that they're raising their children. They don't want it.
Yeah.
So to try to tell somebody else to shout, the other way, you shouldn't be doing that. The mama come back, don't be talking to my child like that.
That's true.
You know, so they didn't grow up the same way we did, because if I went home with a note on me, I had to pass my grandmother and my auntie, and trust me, I got beat twice and then got beat again when I got home to my mama. So yep, I got whoopings and I came out just all right.
And ain't nobody called the police.
Oh, right. CPS and
Right.
And your DCFS come to our house, none of that.
Exactly.
Right, and from the white girl too, I lost count of how many wooden spoons my mom broke over my ass, so I was spanked too. You know what?
I bring back switches. We need switches.
Look, make you go get your own switch off that tree. But bring me a switch.
Soap them in some water, and I dare you to come with a skinny switch.
Y'all almost sound like y'all doing a D.L. Hughley monologue. I don't know if you ever saw that one, Come On Home, where he was bringing back reminiscent things like, so for me, I'm going to tell y'all some of the things I remember, and this is going to really take y'all back. Yeah, I do remember the little TV on top of the big TV, because one had sound, one had a picture.
Yep.
And I remember the antenna. I remember
having to be the antenna.
Hello. I was the channel changing antenna. But I also remember the hi-fi on Saturday when my parents would go out and buy that 45 and they would play the choking kind all day long. Joe Simon, I love you, but I can't listen to that no more. I remember hearing Down Home Blues 75 times all in a row. You know, these are the memories that I take with me. What I take from me living in Chicago was getting up on Saturday morning when my mother would have us. It was 9 of us. I'm the second oldest of 9 kids. We cleaned the house. And while we were cleaning, my mother would tell us things. We would wash our hair. My mother would press our hair. We'd be in the kitchen peeling potatoes, talking. And that's where we got what was called mother wit. This is what these women here are talking about. We're talking about growing up in a home that gave you the tools, the tips, and the resources in order to be the woman that you needed to be to move through this world with the strength and get the resources and do the things that you need to do. Because we all have a purpose in life and we're all finding ourselves. So I want to thank these ladies tonight for sharing what their notion of home is, some of the experiences that they've had. And when I think of home, I think of that song that Stephanie Mills sang when she said, you know, I wish I was back there where there was love overflowing. That's how I think of home. So I want to thank y'all for joining me in my kitchen tonight and taking us back home. And then next week we'll see you again on Voices, and we'll be talking about random-ish. What it is, we don't know, but we want to know what's your frequency and where you from.
Where you from?
Where you from and where you at. Until next week.
And where you going?
That's a whole nother topic. Right? Until next time, this is Eldridge, Bes, Dartania, and Allison. We'll see you next time on Voices.